So Megy Karydes is one of my writing buddies from around Chicagoland, and we first met. Well, it was before the pandemic. I know that much because we were doing that. Hey, let's sit down and let's figure a place where a whole bunch of people can meet. And she has been rather prolific in her writing career, so much so she's done a lot of writing that actually at previous jobs I was like, wait a minute, I know this person, seeing like old articles. But today we're going to be talking about a couple of things, and one of those things is there it is.
Yay! Always nice to see your book.
Yeah, and one of the habits, and Megy, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank
Well,
you.
good, good. One of the things that I have always said is if I have a friend and they write a book, I will buy a copy of it. So if you're my friend
Same.
and you're watching this and you're writing a book, let me know and I will buy a copy of it. I've had to do that a few times, and sometimes they're books that are only kind of interesting to me. And but this one is one, and I mentioned before that I'm not just blowing smoke. I refer back to this book a lot because, and let me
Thank
hold the
you.
title up again. I think these are things that these are ideas using your senses and becoming more calm and lessening the stress in your life. So I guess question one, Megy, is what did you learn about stress and and warding off stress while you were putting this book together?
Okay. Um, that's an interesting question because writing a book in and of itself is actually stressful, right? So it was an interesting idea to put into words some of the learnings as I was doing research, realizing I also had a deadline that I had to submit to my editor. So my book is traditionally published. So it was purchased by a publisher called Source Books, and throughout the process, my editor, who I loved, would just check in with me. So I like that because as a writer, I'm deadline driven, and there are other publishers and editors who tell their authors, "Give me the book in 6 months, whatever," and there's no check in, and I can't work like that. Like I really need those kind of milestone check ins. So from a stress perspective, knowing I had a deadline to meet helped keep me organized and in check. So that's one thing. But also, just in terms of the research, what I found interesting is that originally the book proposal I had submitted was for 25 items that helped alleviate stress. And they were all backed by science. That was an important part of the book. And my editor, who loved the proposal, said, "This is great, but can we make it 50?" And I'm like, wait, that's like doubling the book, right? So she's like, yes, it's true. Do you think you have 50 ideas though? Because it has to obviously be accurate and we have to have things that are appropriate for the book. And I said, let me do some research first and make sure. I don't think it'll be a problem, but I really want to make sure that there's enough content to make a whole book out of it, right? So I did, we did the research and I felt confident. The one thing that was a little tricky is that it's five senses. We had to ground it into something, and that was something also that was very important to me. So there's only so many things that you can actually consume, put in your mouth, taste. That's one of the five senses. So that's where it got a little tricky because some of the other items that are more tactile, they, the not the sight, then touch. There were a lot of things we could do with touch. There's a lot of things we could do with sight, but there's only so many things you can consume. So that section in particular is a little short, just because that you can't digest things just whatever. So but everything again was grounded in science, so there was a lot of research that went back into this book, a lot of first person interviews that I did with experts and sources. And I think at the end of the day, I can't remember, I did a number right after the book was published. I think it was like 200 and something sources for the book. It was significant between primary interviews and actual research. Almost all of the chapters, I'm trying to think if there was a chapter that I didn't. Almost all the chapters have at least one, if not more, primary interviews that were conducted with experts in that specific um, item. So that helps, and I think I leaned on my journalism, my reporting, because I love talking to people. I love this kind of engagement because I learn so much. And there's some really great information out there that you can glean from just written sources or other types of, videos or podcasts or whatever. But there's something really special that comes out of a one-on-one interview that you don't necessarily get just by reading something.
It's funny you say that because that was something as I was refreshing my knowledge this last night, this morning, and looking through the book, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot. There were a lot of studies that you referenced, but there were also a lot of conversations with people
Mhm.
behind the why
Mhm.
that that was attached to the various um, the various 50 ways. What
Mhm.
was there one that you while you were putting together, maybe it was part of that second batch of 25, or maybe it was just one that um, you early on had in the mix. Was there one that surprised you when you were coming up with it?
There were several surprises. One in particular, I spoke with, and you may know her, I don't know. Her name is Shannon Downey. She is a Chicago, she's like a craftivist. So she uses craft as a form of activism. And I interviewed her for one of the chapters. I call them chapters because it's easier. I'm trying to think of which one it was. Let me just really quickly. It's the was like it's like crochet embroidery. It was in the loop. It's the sixth chapter. It's on the embroidery. And what she said is she used it as a way, kind of meditation, to try to keep her hands busy. And what I thought was interesting is that she said when your hands are busy, like literally doing something, you can't be on your phone. You can't be doing something else. Your hands are literally busy doing something. And that to her was meditative. It was like she's doing something, and it was keeping her, I don't want to say distracted. It actually kept her present, right? So that was super interesting because I've never considered embroidery like that. I could understand like the movement being meditative, but I hadn't considered the fact that when you're doing this, you can't also be doom scrolling. So that was super interesting. Um, I did try every single thing in the book. Everything was, I did at least test it. What I also found out, and this is something my therapist actually had highly recommended, and I never really grasped it until I actually worked on the book, is the importance of a light therapy lamp. And to me, a light therapy lamp at the time sounded like it was a lamp. Like, why would I care? Why would it help with, seasonal depression? I get when I don't see sunlight for very long times, like, days, it really affects my mood. It actually affects a lot of people's mood, right? But and I was always recommended a light therapy lamp. And I'm like, that makes no sense. Why would I care about just turning on a lamp? And then when I did the research and I understood how the lumens work and how they mimic natural sunlight and why that's an important part of our just our daily life and our circadian rhythm, then I'm like, this makes sense. So I purchased two. One is almost like a desktop size, and one is a little portable one. I say this because when I started putting the desktop, it was like it blew up my whole bedroom. And then it blew up my whole kitchen because I moved it to the kitchen area when I was making breakfast. It made such a difference in my overall mood that I'm like, oh my God, this is why it made it, this is why they recommended it. So I had a little portable one, and I would mention this to my girlfriends, and I'm like, this is like, I don't want to murder anybody. Like, this is great. And they're like, well, can we try it? I'm like, I have a little portable one. So then it became a joke because then they started kind of like giving it to each other. And one of my friends, she had it also in her kitchen. And her husband, he's a teacher, a high school teacher, he, it was like he was enjoying the benefit as a, just like he was in the kitchen, right? And he's like, oh my God, we have to purchase one of those. It has been such a game changer. And I think that's part of the things, right? It's like you don't really know until you try certain things. And that was the whole point of the book, is like there's 50 things you can try, 50 ways you can give it a shot. Why not try? It may be silly. It may not be. It may be what you need. I also did learn that flotation therapy is not my thing. I do sensory
I'm sorry
deprivation
to laugh.
is not, I did not like that at all. You know what? It felt to me very claustrophobic. It did not relax me. So, but the point is, I tried it, right? And I tried it twice. I'm like, well, maybe the first time it was just not the right setting. It's not for me,
Not your
but it's
thing.
okay.
Um, as you were talking about the tactile benefits of was it crochet, macrame, embroidering?
Embroidery. Well,
Or
that's what Shannon does, kind of like
yeah,
cross
but
stitch.
yeah, I started thinking about well, I guess a couple elements to that. One of the elements is the art of actually creating something. And
Mm-hmm.
I had shared on my blog, I found this really interesting. There's an Orthodox priest, his name escapes me, but he's got a four-step plan for fighting depression.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now I know people will say, well, you can't use religion to fight depression, and you need a medicine or whatever. And he's like, okay, well, hold on. So there was an element of heavy exercise, like for 30
Okay.
minutes. There was also an element of prayer, and there was an element of um, doing something for someone else. Those were three of the four. The one that I thought was the most interesting, and I think this was mostly aimed at men, but I can see how it would work for everyone. Um, he said, you need to do something that is tangible that you can point to, whether it's creating something. So you've got the macrame element or the embroidery element, so that you've got a start and a finish. Now, obviously, you can't get this done
Okay.
in 30 minutes. Um, but there needs to be an actual act of working with your hands, working with maybe tools or an implement of some sort, where there's a start and a finish. And even if that start and finish is, I'm going to create the table leg for this
Mm-hmm.
stool that I'm building. I'm going to create one of them, and it's going to take me a little while, whatever. Um, he even said at one point, he said, pick a room, especially if you're married, pick a room and go clean that room so that when your spouse comes home and they see that room, it's noticeable. Uh,
Hmm.
and so it's the act of creation, I think, that is one of these things. And I thought it was funny, and I guess we'll segue into the gardening piece, because I thought it was kind of funny the start to finish, but then the fact that you said that that tomato was the best tomato you ever had.
Yeah.
How how I mean, part of me is like, okay, that doesn't make sense, but
Uh-huh.
explain that.
Yeah. So the my tomato, it was my COVID project. Gardening was my COVID because we couldn't go anywhere, and I have a backyard, a very decent sized backyard that we never did anything with because we were, two working professionals with two kids. So we just didn't have time. So COVID allowed us to kind of invest in some time, and I literally, it was this organization, this neighborhood organization said, hey, we have seeds. And that was also when, if you remember, during COVID, all the seeds were like being scooped up. So there was no seeds to be found, right? So I went and got my seeds, and like, I don't know how to do this. And I literally went outside, I scooped some soil, I threw my seed in there, and I put it in my front, window. And I remember somebody from that group like, oh, you went and took soil from your backyard. No, that's like, it's got different types of whatever. So you're supposed to go and buy seed starting soil, which I did not even know existed at the time, right? Like, I don't know, it's growing, so it was fine. And I was excited. I was so excited to see that little thing, like, oh my God, this is how tomato, like, I didn't have to go and purchase a tomato plant at the store. This was very exciting. Like, mind blown, which is ridiculous, I know, but it was exciting. So I took my little plant, I took it outside and I planted it, and it grew, it kept growing, and I got my tomato. And I swear it was like so good. It was such a great tasting tomato. And it really to your point with that, the Orthodox priest, it's like creating something from scratch, something that you had, oh, you created is so magical. I was hooked, and to this day, I grow about 2 dozen different types of tomatoes every summer. Yeah, it's blown up, and my husband is a trooper. He's learned how to can. I give away tomatoes. It's become such a part of our lives now. It's been really great. So I do think finding something that matters to you is such an important part, and that creation, to your point, is a really exciting thing. And the one thing that, as you were saying, I wasn't sure is like starting something from beginning to end, because there's not a ton of things you can do for 30 minutes that are meaningful, I guess. Like things just take time. But when you were talking about like even just a little leg to a bigger piece, it doesn't have to be the whole thing, right? It could be where you're just creating, if it is like cleaning up a little area that's kind of decluttering, or just decluttering something, it could be enough in 30 minutes. I guess I like the start and end time.
Yeah.
I like that part. It's like 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be onerous. It doesn't have to be cumbersome. You don't have to go and buy a whole bunch of like paints and brushes if you don't want to, you
Right. And
know?
it's also, yeah, you look at it. I mean, if you think of like a woodworker can probably say, well, I'm building a cutting board, but the first step
Mhm.
is probably I gotta pick out the wood and actually
Right.
start that process. And I gotta create the
Mhm.
measurements and draw all that sort of stuff out. And I'm showing how little mechanical inclination I have because I have no idea what any of that would sound like. But another piece that I thought was interesting was your discussion of writing, but the physical putting actual pen to actual paper. And I thought I've always been a proponent of that, even in corporate days when you're in a meeting and you've got your notebook and you're writing down the important
Mhm.
points, that will help you retain that information.
I
But
agree.
I I wonder if you've got you're looking for your notebook, aren't you?
No, yeah, I like literally I had an interview the other day, and it's like it's the reporter notebook.
Right.
It's like
Oh yeah,
I
those.
want to show it to you because I'm like, there's one thing about recording, and I do have that, and I have it where you can send it to a transcription service and it transcribes it for you. But there's something, like you said, putting pen to paper, it completely uses a different type of brain skill that I think unfortunately people have lost, especially when they're using their iPads to take notes or
You've
write.
got, yeah, you've got the daily habit. Walk me through what that is. Your
Yeah,
daily.
every morning. Yeah, every morning. So, as an example, today it's freaking cold. I mean, the sun's trying to come out. Actually, it's coming out now, but in the morning when I wake up, it's dark. So, and as soon as I wake up, literally I go down the stairs. My coffee is already ready, waiting for me, and my light therapy lamp goes on. And I have a little fireplace, an electric fireplace. I turn that on because I also like the heat. And even though we don't have a real fireplace, log burning fireplace in my home, which is makes me sad, at least I have my little heater, so that makes me happy. I have my coffee, and then I sit down and I have my journal, and I journal by hand every morning for like 30 minutes. And it's a non-negotiable. That is something I do every single morning. Even in the winter or in the summer when it's hot or warmer, I will still go and have my hot cup of coffee. That is my kind of like way of grounding in the morning. Um, in the summer, when it's a little nicer in the morning, I will also maybe go for a walk. So I like to be outside or at least go out in my garden. So that is again that process of writing. It could be what happened the day before. It could be what I'm looking forward to during that day. It could be what I'm looking for over the weekend, a trip I'm planning, whatever it is. But just the physical action of writing it down is so therapeutic for me. I can't even imagine. I have so many notebooks and I love them. So You also have your pen. Like it's a whole process. It's not just about taking a spiral note, for me anyway, about taking a spiral notebook and just like jotting notes. Um, it's it's a very sacred ritual that I have every morning.
But you also said that people can start with this process. I found this interesting too. Start with this process wherever you are and do
Hmm.
whatever you want with it. It was the act less about what you're saying and more about the fact that you are actually
Yeah.
building this pen to paper habit
Hmm. Hmm.
that I
Yeah.
found that really, really compelling
Hmm.
because not everybody is going to want to write down, hey, this is everything that happened to me yesterday.
Hmm.
And people may just want to just jot some notes about just general stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be what you're seeing outside in your yard or in your front window. It doesn't have to be anything profound. It's really just about being reflective. And some people do it as a form of meditation. Some people do it because they actually just like, I love the tactile nature of writing. And even right now, I'm working on a book for a client, and like I said, I was interviewing this person because there's a lot of interviews that have to happen for this book with different people, and I'm still taking notes by hand in terms of like outlining and I'm starting to outline in my head as I talk to people, but I'm still writing the stuff down because for me that's how I can kind of remember key points. I'm like, this there's a pattern here. I can see this pattern. I don't think I could see that by writing it on a computer. Like there's just, to me, that's how I process things. It's like when I'm talking to someone, like, okay, this is important. I'm going to make a little, like, on my little journalism or journalist notebook, I'll put a little star. And I'm like, okay, this has been said a couple of times by different people. I'm going to start kind of noting it down. But I can't do that on a computer. Like that's not me, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny because I think back to my PR days when we would facilitate an interview and some of the best journalists were the ones that you could actually tell, or if they're in the same room with you, they're writing everything down by hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, um, shorthand, but most of them never messed up a quote. But there
Yeah.
was never an issue with, wait, did I say that? No, yeah, you
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
that. Um, the I wrote down some things that I thought were interesting from the book. We talked about pen to paper. We talked a little bit about food. There were two pieces that I thought were really fascinating. One is mindful eating,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is slow food. So let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about mindful eating. What is meant by that?
So we're so used to rushing through our food. It kind of goes together with the slow eating. We're so used to kind of rushing through it, but mindful eating is really just being present when you're eating. It's not just about rushing through the process, but really thinking about what it is that you're eating, looking at the colors, using your senses. Can you smell what you're eating? Because obviously there's a strong connection between putting something in your mouth and what you smell. So that's the whole point of mindful eating. Slow food, similarly, is just also incorporating community and finding ways that you can make food eating meals not necessarily just by yourself. Like, what can you do in terms of finding that community to enjoy a meal together? This is more popular in European countries than it is in the United States, where we tend to just kind of eat alone in our homes or with our nuclear families. But even then, even when you have a traditional nuclear family, and I don't know what traditional even means anymore, everybody's running around. That's part of the challenge of trying to find that time to spend with your own kids or your own family, because there's soccer practice and there's dance lessons and there's all these other things that are going on that I struggled even when my kids were little to try to find that kind of time to spend with them because we were always doing things. And so just that, finding that opportunity to make those connections with people, whether it's a family or a friend, your own neighbors, um, it's a special gift, and we don't often do that. And one thing that my husband and I have actually been talking about is to incorporate more opportunities to invite our neighbors to our old backyard during the summer months and just have a drink and some appetizers. It doesn't have to be a full blown, 5-course meal. It could literally just be, hey, neighbor, you want to come in the backyard? The sun's shining, maybe 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be even scheduled. Like, you know what I mean? Just finding those opportunities to just enjoy a piece of, it could be bread, whatever it is, and just kind of meet with people where they are. Um, but also just kind of being mindful of the senses. Like, what is it that I mentioned earlier about my morning coffee and how excited I get in the morning because it is a way for me to not only wake up, but just the smell of the coffee is exciting to me. Like, you just kind of wake up and you're like, it feels like everything's right in the world, even though the world might be upside down. There's that kind of like, I can look forward to that. That's a constant in my life, you know?
Yeah, and I
And it
think
brings back
people,
happy memories.
yeah, and people have lost the sense of community by and large. If you think about just the way we live now, even in um, how many people are not in the same town as their parents? How many people are not
Mm-hmm.
close enough with how many kids grow up with cousins that are in other towns compared to maybe what we were used to growing up, um, and how that then forces us to step out of our comfort zones and have to create those things
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, right?
Our communities. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
My kids joke about it because my husband and I come from very small families. Well, at least more me. His family is larger, but they are farther spread out. And growing up, my kids, we had close friends with kids their age, and so we would say, "Oh, they're like your cousins," and so they have a lot of cousins. And so at one point, actually, most recently, like, wait, so are they really my? So who are these people? Are they really my cousins, or are they cousins? I'm like, can we just not have a chosen family? Like, can't they be our cousins?
yeah. No, I feel
You
that. I
know?
definitely feel that. Um, what did you learn about the publishing process while you were writing this book?
That's a great question. And actually, this is something I get asked a lot, especially because I also ghostwrite. So I can lean on this experience a little bit because some people do want to be what they call traditionally published, which is what my book was. And some other people who don't necessarily have that platform or a book that would make sense for a traditional publisher, we go a hybrid route. So there's that kind of distinction that I want to make because as a traditional publisher, working with a traditional publisher, they basically buy the book, on your proposal, and they work with you to get the final piece. But once you deliver that manuscript, it's basically theirs. So when I look at it that way, I almost liken it to my responsibility, other than marketing my book, is out of my hands. So they decide on the cover, they decide on the title, they decide on the paper, they decide on everything, right? So because it's their book at this point, it's like it's a traditional publisher. My editor, who I mentioned I love, did share with me some of the title suggestions that they were doing. They did a lot of market research to see what types of words people would use to possibly find my book. The title is like the longest title ever. It's a very long title, but it is intentional because it is the type of book that people will look for. It's like reduce stress, less stress, ways to reduce stress, right? So, and 5 senses, all these things. So that's why they packed all those words really well. I did respond when she asked me for my opinion. I did say, seems long. Can we maybe shorten it? She goes, well, this is really what the publisher or like what their market research said. So it's like, I guess my point is they asked me, but did they really? No, right? That's what they're going to go with. Same thing with the cover, which I actually love, so that's not a problem. But it was like, oh, here's the cover. Like,
There it
Right,
is.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's I
it's and it's a beautiful book. Like the colors in it and the
yeah.
way it was designed, it's fun to flip through and it's very digestible.
Yeah,
Um,
and then they also decided, again, I did not know this. They decided they were going to do illustrations in the book. That was a perk for me because I'm like, this is great because they're investing money in the book. They also, again, unbeknownst to me, and decided to make it into an audio book. So it was a big deal because I had not known, but again, they chose a talent. They went through the process. I had nothing to do with that. So my point is, if you're going to go the traditional publishing route, um, which was very exciting, you're going to give up a lot of control. With my other clients who I ghostwrite for, they tend to go the hybrid route where they work with a hybrid publisher where they maintain control over all the steps. They can decide on the cover, they decide on the font that they're going to use, they decide on the paper. You mean like all the decisions they decide. So it's a little different of an experience, but um, it just depends on what the end goal is for people, you know?
and then financially, I know from my research into book projects, I know that most of the people get into a project and they think they're going to set the world on fire and sell a zillion copies.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones who are more successful long term tend to be the ones who will go into it saying, I have something to say, and this will be part of my platform and not,
Yeah.
this is not the thing. I'm not James Patterson. I'm not Tim
Mm-hmm.
Ferriss. I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to have a book that sells a zillion copies. However,
Mm-hmm.
I will have something to hold up
Yeah,
when I'm speaking or when I'm meeting with a client or whatever. Does that
exactly.
ring true?
Yes. I will say I've been very fortunate to be working with my publisher because my book has sold thousands of copies. So I'm very excited about that because people are buying it and people seem to be responding to it. So, and in fact, I even emailed my editor who is no longer with Source Books. She's off on her own doing developmental editing. And I said, oh my God, this is so exciting. I just pulled my report through the end of June because the publishing cycle, they give you reports every 6 months. So I don't actually know what has sold past June 2025. But it's like I've earned out my advance, right? So it's like this is exciting because most people don't sell more than 400 books, and my book has done very well, so I'm very happy about that. um but to your point, the point of writing the book wasn't necessarily because I thought it was going to become a bestseller, or that I wanted to write the book because it mattered to me, and I'm a writer, so this is an important part of who I identify as, who I am, right? But I also use it as an opportunity to market myself to clients because there is that cachet of my book has been traditionally published. I can write a full length book. There's proof there because when you ghostwrite, you cannot mention who your clients are, your authors. So I can't say, oh, I've written this person's book because I'm their ghostwriter. But I can say, look, I've got my own book. I can prove that I can write a whole book, right? So I had to have some other sort of marketing collateral, so to speak, in order to prove that. But
Yeah.
also, one of my goals was to write a book. So this is, set those goals, right?
Yeah, exactly. Talk to me then about ghostwriting because it sounds uh, I don't I don't think people know how often the famous people or the semi-famous people use ghostwriters.
Yeah. I don't know if this is an accurate percentage, but it's been thrown around. So I will say it's undocumented as far as I know, unsourced. 90% of celebrity books are ghostwritten. Like it's something ridiculously high, like a very high percentage. There's like a handful of celebrities who probably have written their own book, and you could probably tell because of the way they write, because they're not writers, most of them, right? So that's not their skill set. So most of the celebrity books are ghostwritten, but it's not just celebrities, it's thought leaders, it's CEOs, it's people who have something to say. They want to write a book about their business, or they want to leave a book for their families, like a memoir or a legacy book. Sometimes, depending on the ghostwriter and the contracts that they negotiate, you'll see at the bottom, like written by, or the author's big name, and that with, or some sort of like the name is a little smaller.
Yeah.
That's really great because then that kind of identifies the ghostwriter or their collaborator in collaboration with. So that's a telltale sign because it shows that that writer, that author worked with somebody else to help them write their book. Um, but I think a lot of people don't realize the benefit of having worked with a ghostwriter too, because they are not responsible for writing their own book completely. They are working with somebody in collaboration with them. So they can do what they do best. They can be a doctor, they can be a lawyer, they can be a C-suite executive, they can be a coach, they can be whatever it is. That's who they are. They're just working with somebody else to help them get their thoughts out there. So that's the benefit of working with a ghostwriter. You have an accountability partner. You have somebody who can tease out that narrative arc. I was mentioned to you earlier, the other book I'm working on right now where I'm interviewing all these people. It's like, I don't think my client actually knows what that theme is going to be because now I've had an opportunity to talk to people and they're like, oh, interesting. Like, this is the theme I'm hearing. Like, I would not have thought that. So it's like sometimes you have that other perspective that can really help clarify some of the ideas too, working with a ghostwriter. And it doesn't have to be a book, it could be LinkedIn posts, it could be blog posts, it could be marketing collateral. I think there's other ways that people can work with writers that they may not have considered. I
So
mean,
here's
you've done this. I mean, you've done this even as a PR person. How many
yeah,
times have you written thought leadership pieces, speeches for client? I mean, this is what we do. This is our
right.
skills, right?
I'm not allowed to say, but yes. And the flip side of that is when you write a press release and it's gone through so many iterations of executive where it's like, do you have to put my name on it? Because this is not when
Right,
people
right, right, right.
Google my name, I don't want them to see that I'm associated with writing this quality. But I've already said too much. And this might be kind of out of left field, but what has AI done, I guess, for you, to you, and against you in this
Mhm.
whole writing, publishing world that we're living in now?
Yeah, so I was actually an early adopter of AI because I also I teach graduate level courses at Johns Hopkins University. So for me, being abreast, on top of it and abreast of all these tools seems obvious because I have to be able to also teach them. So this is something I incorporated into my curriculum like over 2 years ago, which is early for AI stuff. And it was at the beginning stages, so it was clunky at that point. But still, I incorporated assignments that showed students how to use AI to create like social media posts or give you outlines of things. So I don't use AI to write my stuff. I use AI to help me think through some ideas, maybe some like subject lines or headlines to kind of riff with it almost like a mind map. So I'm like, here's what I'm thinking. Can you help me think through this stuff? It's almost like you have a sparring partner that if you were in a newsroom or in an agency setting where you ask your cubicle mate, hey, let's talk through this. I use AI kind of like that. Sometimes I will use it to help me create some social media content as a starting point. I guess that's the point. It's like I kind of use it in a draft form to kind of start the process, but never to use it as a writing. Like I will, it's you could see, you can hear, and it's frustrating because even with some of my students, I could see that they used it to submit their assignments, and I'm like, this is AI garbage. Like you need to go back and try this again. I think there's an easy default for a lot of students to use it because it seems like, oh, maybe I won't, my professor won't notice. And it's like, I notice it. And it's not just about the M dash. There's other
Yeah.
ways that AI speaks that is obvious.
Uh, on the M dash, I got to tell you the thing that changed my life because I've been a big M dash fan for the longest time. the longest time. And so when I'm posting on my phone, I know to hold the button down and it'll give me the option. And in WordPress, when you type two dashes together, it creates an actual
And the
M dash.
space, right?
Not as it's better than what you would get from Microsoft Word, which is too small an M dash to be
Mhm.
considered an M dash. The greatest innovation in the last
By the way,
12
I
years.
love the fact that we're talking about M dashes like that deeply right now.
I'm not. This is a non-negotiable. It's like Oxford comma. Like you. I don't. I'm not sure. I
Do you think
totally
AI
care.
has killed? Do you think AI has killed the M dash?
Do I think AI has killed the M dash?
Yes, like because it uses it so much that it's like, and not in the best way. Like I feel like if I ever use the M dash, people are gonna like, you know, say that I used AI. You know?
Yeah, I'm
No?
going out of my way to make it happen that it
Okay.
does not kill the M dash. And
Okay. All right.
one of the innovations that I learned about a year ago was you have to have number lock key on your computer. Alt
Okay.
0151. Wait, hold on.
Okay.
Alt 151. I'm
What
gonna
is the
I
point
have
of
to
that?
actually try this in real time now. Um, Alt one, wait, yeah, it's Alt 0151. Alt 0151. Yep. Okay, so
Okay.
you
What does
hold
it
down the
do?
Alt key
Okay.
and you go 0151 on your keyboard, and up pops
Okay.
an actual M dash.
Oh, all right. I'm gonna.
Yes.
I'll have to.
Yes.
Okay.
This is going to be one of those like YouTube shorts that you see afterwards. It's like, wait a minute, what we'll
How
talk
do
about.
you?
Yeah, yeah, and we'll put that, yeah. Um, but I don't want the M dash to die. And I think the but I was always used to it as an aside that's important, not a parenthetical, but an aside that is important and related
Yeah.
to the sentence itself. And I think what I don't know if somebody was sitting at ChatGPT headquarters and saying, why don't we come up with a way to make everything look like it's, and this was what they came up with. I'm not sure, but it does kind of anger me that's what happened to the M dash.
It'll get
We're just
better. I mean, AI is getting smarter.
Yeah, and I guess the other fear is now you've got people typing in or taking documents to the AI checker to try to find out with, I don't know if you saw this a few weeks ago, they put the Declaration of Independence in an AI checker and it came back, this was written by AI.
That's awesome. No, I did
So
not see that.
yeah, so that the
Uh,
question is if all of these large language models are going to be based on stuff that you and I and a bunch of other people write,
mhm.
and eventually everything that is written is going to be in there driving the large language model. It's going to then look like everything was written by AI.
Yes,
We're not
and
going to win.
but that's also where human writing becomes even more elevated
I
without
agree.
using AI because that
Yes.
your voice will come through. It it's not AI voice, right? You could throw whatever you want in those systems, and right now they are getting better. They are getting better at mimicking the human voice, but your unique voice will always be your unique voice,
Yeah.
right? So I'm not there yet. I think AI plays a role. I think it can be useful for a lot of things. People use it for everything from creating meal plans based on their macros to you know whatever it is that they want to do. It's a useful tool for a lot of reasons, but I don't think for writing books or lengthy pieces it does a good job. At least not yet.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And there was and bear with me for a second because I'm thinking a lot about boomers and I love boomers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but they fall for a lot of stuff. And I think
Oh,
once we get past the boomer test, and here's where I'm going with that. I watch a lot of Sky News out of the
okay.
UK. It's really fascinating to me to see how they approach everything, including what's happening over there, what's happening over here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but I noticed that all of the people that host shows are presenters. They're called presenters. And where I'm going with this is I saw a story here on one of the major networks in the US, and they were talking about how there was a diet pill scandal of some sort that was using people like Oprah and Kelly Clarkson, those are the two I can remember, as supposed spokespeople. I lost a lot of weight because I was taking
Mhm.
this, and it looked and sounded like them.
Yeah.
But the voiceover person who had an American accent was
Mhm.
saying stuff like, here's Oprah Winfrey, a presenter, to tell you how it worked for her. And
Mhm.
to me, my spidey sense went off and said, I've never heard Oprah Winfrey called a presenter. So what happened
Mm.
here is that
Mm.
somebody in another English-speaking
Yeah.
country that isn't the US decided to create an AI and put all that in, and
Mhm.
they didn't think past that word. Well, a lot of
Mhm.
boomers were falling for it.
Yeah.
And you'll see things online that boomers will share and they'll fall for something that is obviously fake. And I guess the
Right.
challenge for us as writers is to get to the point where
Mhm.
we're helping educate as many other people as we possibly can to spot the fakes. And
Mhm.
what are the things that we ought to look for to spot the fakes? And how can you tell
Mhm.
the authenticity is actually there? So I
Right.
guess that's the question
That's
for you is
it's a
how do you tell
yeah,
the
it's a
authenticity is there?
yeah, I mean, it's and to be fair, it's not even just the boomers. I even on my Facebook page, I'll see people who are definitely not boomers. They're much younger and they're sharing stuff. And then they'll follow up like, oops, sorry, turns out this wasn't correct or accurate or not real. This was an AI. And but I'll still keep it on here because it's a cute sentiment. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So it is tricky because it's so easy at this point to create some of those AI generated memes or stories or clips. It's concerning. It is concerning. It's I hate to use the term, but it is fake news. So you have to have those critical thinking skills to just kind of weave through that and figure out, okay, who sent this? Where's the source? But that's with any sort of news. It's not just the AI stuff. It's like, where's the agenda? Who's created this? I mean, right now, a lot of social media, there's content creators who make money, cash money, right, based on engagement. So they have every reason to keep putting out stuff like that because it drives engagement. Accurate or not, it's their way of making revenue. So again, as a user, then you have to think, okay, is this accurate? Like even in some of the gardening groups that I'm in on Facebook, they'll put this photo of this beautiful looking plant or cabbage, something silly, right? And it's like bright purple or something. It doesn't make sense, right? And they're like, where can I find this? It's like that's an AI generated plant. It doesn't exist. Um, it's like, come on now, right? But you have to think about, okay, who's creating this, why are they creating it, and maybe don't forward and share it, unless you know where the source came from.
Oh, easier said than done. So
It
we've got
is.
about a minute or so left. Uh,
Oh
what,
my goodness, it's went so quickly.
yeah, what final thoughts would you have for people who are watching who want to get into the book writing, publishing, book world?
I when I was working on another book that did not get, I did not move on it. I asked a an author, his recommendation because I looked up to his work and I said, I'm kind of stuck and I don't know where to go with this. And he's like, just start writing, just start. And it kind of, it was one of those obvious things. Like I could just start, just literally get something on paper and it's going to be garbage and it's fine because that's what we have to do. We have to get it down first. So that would be my recommendation. If somebody is legitimately interested in either working as a writer, as a features writer, whatever it is, what kind of book writing, just start, just write down stuff. It's okay if it's not like right now. Secret note, I'm actually working on a mystery novel. I've never written fiction. This is kind of exciting. I love it. It's just kind of another way to use my brain cells. But I'm just like, I'm so nervous that it's not going to be good. I'm like, who cares? Who cares? All I'm doing is putting things on paper. I'm having fun with it. That's all that matters. If it never becomes a book, that's okay because I'm learning a lot about how mystery novels take shape, protagonists, the red herrings. I'm learning all this stuff that I had never known because I used to just consume it as a reader. And I'm just like, oh, that's how they do it. That's the trick. It's like how the sausage is being made. And that's really fun. So if nothing else, even if I never get, published as a mystery author, I will still enjoy reading them. I will still, you know what I mean? So just start. Just start.
That's awesome advice. Thanks, Megy. Megy Karydes has been our guest today, and we'll share links for you to pick up the book, which I encourage you to do. Buy her book because it's great.
Thank
You'll
you.
refer to it often, and you will be like me. You will start growing your tomatoes on your porch this year because I will. I definitely. I
Oh,
have
I'm
to
so
grow
glad to
something.
hear that.
Yeah, I got to grow something this year. So thanks, Megy. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, I'm